Yes.
Okay, great. So we are pleased to be here and thank you for the invitation. I know a lot of the UU members are also members of the Keweenaw Land Trust, and we really appreciate that. So like Miriam noted, I'm Pat Toczydlowski. I'll be talking about our land conservation program, sort of a history and some of our current challenges, and then Jill will follow me to talk about stewardship. Oops, why isn't this working? Stuck in here. I'm in a little technical difficulty. Okay. The Keweenaw Land Trust, just by way of introduction, operates as a nonprofit charitable organization. It was founded in 1996 at a time when the number of land trusts in the country was really growing. It's intentionally a community-based and member-supported organization, and we work in 6 western counties of the Upper Peninsula. Our mission can be framed as a community partner, protecting land, water, and quality of life through conservation, stewardship, and nature connections, or connecting people to our protected lands and the natural world in general. Quality of life can mean a lot of different things, but these are the attributes that have bubbled up through our organization and our community as things that the Keweenaw Land Trust should safeguard that are relevant to our mission. Miriam gave that introduction. I did come here to get my degree from Tech, and a lot of those attributes captured me like they do a lot of people, so I managed to find a way to stay here. I joined the staff of the Keweenaw Land Trust about 20 years ago. And one of the big changes for our organization is that Evan McDonald, who has been our executive director over that entire time, is stepping away as of the end of this coming week. And I will be filling in as the interim executive director. Those are big shoes to fill. But I do have a great support team, not only in the organization, but in my family. Our family has embraced the Keweenaw Land Trust. Our kids were kind of raised in service of the land trust, and they all continue to volunteer and support me in my work, which is a big help. The other thing to remember is that as KLT is an accredited organization, we could give a whole separate talk on that, but part of the accreditation process is really planning for sustainability, and that includes, financials and the ability of the organization to fund itself into the future, but it also involves succession planning. And many of you who've maybe been to a meeting have heard Eric Lillisgov say KLT is all of us. So while Evan has been an integral part of the organization, he's not in and of himself KLT, and there are plans for succession in place and means to sustain the organization. We have a dedicated staff and dedicated volunteers in our board of directors, and a culture and framework that Evan has helped establish that we imagine carrying us forward into the future. So we feel well poised for change, and with change, good things can come. So I'm focusing a little bit on our land conservation program today, and you could summarize that as saying, what are we going to protect? What are we going to protect it from? What are we protecting it for? And how do we go about that? So land trusts work to protect special places in perpetuity, but they work at different scales. So the Nature Conservancy, they focus their efforts globally. So they're looking for globally significant natural resources to conserve. The Michigan Nature Association is a statewide organization. The Keweenaw Land Trust focuses our efforts in 6 of the western counties of the Upper Peninsula. And Gratiot Lake and Yellow Dog watershed conservancies are 2 that focus on a specific geographic area. So the Land Trust Alliance specifies that we have project selection criteria. What should we be protecting? And that helps us make sure that our work isn't done in an impactful way. So we last updated these in April of 2014. This is just a capture of a report that was a comprehensive effort to kind of check in on what we thought we should be protecting. And no surprises, these what we call conservation priority themes were reinforced and remain relevant, we feel. So those include protecting the natural shorelines of Lake Superior, which is no surprise given it's such a defining feature of our region, along with unfragmented forest and natural areas, ecologically significant habitats and environmental health, public access to recreational and scenic areas, safeguarding our inland waters, and encouraging sustainable forestry and land use practices. So these are general themes that we weigh and evaluate our prospective projects against. Another valuable resource we use to help guide our work is the Lake-wide Action Management Plan. This is an ongoing international multi-agency collaborative effort. The IJC helps, I think, make this a requirement that these reports are updated periodically. And for Lake Superior, there is a biodiversity conservation assessment, and it goes around the watershed in chunks and comes up with maps like this one for the Keweenaw Peninsula that identify a lot of conservation targets that contribute to biodiversity. So one reason the Keweenaw has partners like the Nature Conservancy here is that there's a tremendous amount of biodiversity conservation targets concentrated in our area. The Nature Conservancy has a lot more science resources. They've done eco-regional assessments. This is back from 2000, but the features that underlie this analysis of conservation areas is still relevant today. And this is another resource we focus, and a lot of our work has been conducted in areas that are identified as these eco-regional sites. We also refer to a lot of plans. A lot of the agencies write conservation plans, and these are often things we need to align grant applications with. So we have a lot of resources besides our local values that we tap into to identify projects. So how do we go about conserving land? KLT accepts donations of land, and we purchase land primarily with grant funding that to establish permanent nature areas. And we also hold conservation easements. Those are permanent legal agreements that extinguish some rights that a landowner typically has. They run with the deed to the land, and they give KLT legal standing to enforce the terms of those land agreements. So there are other tools. Among those is the reserve life estate. That's a case where the land is deeded to the land trust now, but that donor reserves the use of the land for their lifetime. When they pass on, the land seamlessly and automatically converts to full KLT ownership. When KLT was first getting started, we were an all-volunteer organization. We bought a lot of reference materials through the Land Trust Alliance. Starting a land trust, we read that like a Bible, figured out how to get an organization going, started developing a lot of templates and checklists for a project, and then we just kind of waited for a landowner to have the confidence in us to actually move ahead and do a conservation project. So all projects depend on partnership, and it starts with a willing landowner. So the Keweenaw Land Trust, or any land conservation organization, we don't have powers to condemn land or force a landowner to do a conservation project. It has to be a willing effort on their part. So at a minimum, a willing landowner and a land conservation entity like the Keweenaw Land Trust would be the minimum partnership required for a project. But as the complexity and costs of a project escalate, there's a lot of other partners and funding resources that are required to expand a partnership to accomplish larger projects. So Janet and Erwin Simmy were the first people that trusted us and jumped in to do a conservation easement in 1998 over their 260 acres of what we call working forest, the land that would be sustainably managed for timber harvest and other conservation values. And so that was our first project. And among our earliest fee land projects was the Pavla wetlands. So in 1999, the Copper Country Masonic Lodge donated us 10 acres of their land off Highway 41 in the Pavla wetland system. Among our criteria is weighing opportunities to expand conservation efforts that are already in place. And so Pavla Wetlands has been expanded 3 times and is now at 215 acres. And then across the highway in the same ecological system on Boston Creek, in 2008, the Land Trust did one of our first fundraising efforts, local fundraising efforts, to buy a piece of property there, and then expanded it again in 2016. So while we're following sort of the same general processes, as KLT has grown and added staff, we've kind of formalized this process into sort of a little bit of an intimidating schematic here, but basically staff take the lead on filtering and processing land project possibilities. We rely on our lands committee to dive into the details, and we are first looking at this could do question. So does a project have conservation values and public benefits that fit with our mission? The committee would recommend those up to our board, and if that's given a green light, then we figure out if it's a can-do project, or really even if it's a should-do project, if the case is strong for a particular project. And in this case, we're starting to dive into the details of is the title clean? How much is it going to cost? Can we raise the funding? Can we negotiate terms that are acceptable to the landowner? So this is basically the framework we follow now for our land projects. And another way of looking at it is to think about the intersection of the conservation values. Those regional plans are priorities. There's some requirements, the internal revenue service layers over land groups. And those opportunities, the funding, the willing landowner, the partner support. But then we also need to look at, are there threats? So when we have more opportunities than we can really work on at any one time, if a project is really great, but there really isn't much threat to the resources there or urgency on the part of the landowner or whatever, we can perhaps set that aside in favor of a project that has more threats or urgency. So the intersection of all of these is sort of the sweet spot where we try to work. Lightfoot Bay, it's a natural embayment off of Huron Bay down in Baraga County in the Skaney area. There's a really significant coastal wetland, or globally significant wetland complex. This is a layer from the National Wetland Inventory, and all these greens and yellows are nationally declining wetland types. This was the focus of this was the first project where KLT actually pursued a federal land acquisition grant, and that was necessary because if we were to accomplish this project, we were jumping from the realm of land that cost tens of thousands into the realm where land cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there was a lot of trepidation on the part of our board at that time. Is this something we could tackle? And we did have success. And in fact, we've over the years received 3 other federal grants to expand our conservation there from an initial 56 acres to 136 acres today. In addition, we jumped across Huron Bay to do a lot of conservation work over the past decade on the Abbey Peninsula. So here's what the Abbey Peninsula looks like from the air, with Huron Bay and Keweenaw Bay and the Keweenaw Peninsula visible in that picture. And this started with a second federal grant that focused on this, what we call the Huron Bay Field Station, a large tract of about 1,400 acres. That's kind of our anchor for efforts that we've received 4 federal grants for, and are trying to link together significant resources that tie together all this green that is the government-owned land that's also managed for public benefits. So we've been working there for about a decade and a phased and strategic approach and really accomplishing almost an equal reserve landscape level conservation in that area. And going back to those biodiversity conservation targets in the LAMP report, one reason that we've been successful is that the whole area basically is covered with conservation targets. So fishery habitat and spawning grounds, the nearshore waters of Huron and Keweenaw Bay, and then this blue-green color, the coastal wetlands. So we've used a lot of national coastal wetland competition funds. And one reason we are competitive for these is because there is such a concentration of recognized conservation targets in this area. Another project that we've really scaled up for as an organization, another project that was about a decade in the making, is the Pilgrim River Watershed Project. And this again involved many partners, and especially so important our landowners, John Olala and the Hobble family. And then again, federal grants, this time through the Forest Legacy Program and community forest programs of the Forest Service. So really scaling up our efforts to have landscape level impact with this project, linking to some other lands managed for public benefit and protecting about 3 miles of the Pilgrim River. And I'm guessing that since Bill Letter was kind of instrumental in a lot of the fundraising, probably a lot of you members contributed to the success of this project, I'm guessing. So by the numbers, currently 26 nature areas that KLT owns, that covers about 3,800 acres. And on our books, it's valued at about $8.5 million. All of this land open for public use. And then 20 conservation easements protecting another 4,200 acres. Those are valued at $1 each on our books because they're almost a liability to us in that we have a lot of enforcement responsibilities, but don't actually own that land. 5 of those are open for public use. And so currently the KLT is safeguarding about 10 miles of Lake Superior shoreline and 1.3 miles on the Keweenaw waterway. But the ecological impact of that is much greater when you consider the connectivity of those lands with other lands that are managed for public benefit. So on a map, a little bit crude one, all these pink dots are the 31 areas that are protected lands that are open for the public. So those are scattered over Keweenaw, Houghton, and Baraga counties, and our easement program is effective here as well as in some of the other western counties of the UP, but all the lands we own that are open for the public are in the 3-county area. And you won't be able to read this, but the point here is that all of these X's are how each of these projects or cluster of projects align with our conservation priority themes. So most of them hit on more than one conservation priority theme. So we feel like we are being impactful and effective with our conservation resources. Some of the challenges that that we face is considering the differences and benefits of KLT ownership, or what we call fee lands, versus conservation easements. So we've really, over the last several years, focused more on fee lands. And I can't say whether that's intentional or not. It's sort of the way things have happened, but there are definitely challenges to the conservation easement approach. And these are things we take seriously. So 5 of our 20 easements are open to the public. So there's just less tangible or direct public benefits with the conservation easement program. They provide less opportunity for our members and supporters to directly engage with those protected lands. Another factor is that KLT has less control over the timing of the stewardship demands on these. So a lot of those land protection agreements require the owners to seek approval from us or provide notice for various activities they undertake. And those have time demands on a response for KLT. And so the timing of those is out of our control. All of a sudden we'll get a request, I need you to approve this plan, forest management plan, or we're going to conduct a timber harvest. And so those place a lot of time sensitive demands on KLT that we might not have planned for. Violations of the terms of those easements are on the rise across the land trust community. And a lot of that comes from as the ownership of those lands change over time, there's a tendency for the new owners to be less connected to those easements and what their purpose was. And so there are even cases where the new landowners are hostile to the land trust that holds the easement. So we're not there yet, but it's prudent for us to look ahead at what might be coming. So in part, because of all those violations and the legal challenges to deal with them, the Land Trust Alliance, our umbrella group, they mandate as part of our accreditation process, legal defense and stewardship funds that we need to have on reserve to document that we have the capacity to steward our lands effectively. So while the easements are often donated and come with a lower cost up front, the forever cost of easements is proving to be much higher. And so the Land Trust Alliance is mandating higher stewardship reserves for easement versus lands that are owned by the conservation entities. And then those easements are forever documents, but they're written at a specific point in time. And so future interpretations and changing Internal Revenue Service and legal requirements, make it just challenging to write those as forever documents and to, interpret them as over time. So I wouldn't say that the easement program is it's still an effective tool, but in KLT's case, we're being way more strategic and stringent about how we apply those easements and really make sure they're for projects that, meet a pretty high bar. So another balancing act that's relevant to the land trust now is the balance between our land protection and our stewardship program. So it's no probably surprise to people that land values have increased dramatically over the last few years. There's much more competition for land that's on the market. So KLT's had the luxury of time in that we could, take a couple of years to develop a funding strategy. The costs were affordable. So as the Keweenaw is increasingly discovered, there's just a lot more competition that's going to complicate and make our land protection program. We're going to be required to act in shorter time periods and raise more money to protect land. So we have had a philosophy of sort of protect it while you can, and we can always catch up on stewardship later. We've added a lot of protected land base and haven't exactly bolstered our stewardship program in parallel. And so we're playing a little bit of catch up there. And that's going to be an ongoing balance between adding to our protected lands and building the capacity of our stewardship program to deal with that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and let Jill share her screen and talk about our stewardship program. And then we'll answer questions after Jill is done.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Great. All right. I was really enjoying that talk. I kind of forgot I have to go out of listener mode and go into presentation mode here. So, all right. Yeah, that was a good lead in, Pat. So sometimes it's a little cliche to put these dictionary definitions in, but this one fit because of the perfect example they gave. So the job of supervising or taking care of something such as an organization or property, and their example was responsible stewardship of our public lands. That is really what we're trying for here, responsible stewardship of public lands. Let's see. I'm having the same technical difficulty as you, Pat. I wonder how did you, oh, there we go. I don't know what I did there. Okay. So stewardship is leaving the land and the resources better than we found them. Basically, that's another way of saying that, I guess. So you might recognize some faces in that picture. I think that was at Hungarian Falls. So this debate between, like Pat was saying, we are a limited staff. None of us are full-time. Most of us are closer to half-time. We've got 4 people. One of them is in the office the whole time. So we have only so many people hours and only so much monetary resource, and time is really a valuable resource. So do we spend it on some great properties that are coming up for sale, or do we spend it on protecting the properties that we already have? And like Pat said, we've kicked some cans down the road here because we feel this need to protect the land while we still can. But if someone's coming to Pavla and they're looking at our accessible trail and they see these weeds growing, you can't very well push a wheelchair through that anymore. So this accessible path that we put in needs some serious maintenance. This is a new property. I don't know if any of you have been to our Boston Woods property. It's off of Boston Roads. There's a lot of cleanup to do there, and these tires aren't there anymore, but there's still a lot of other things that we could clean up. And then Koski Woods is one of those places on the Point Abbey Peninsula. The Abbey is such a great place. It's like another world, like going back in time, and the resources are so great to protect there. But like these big patches of these invasive species are threatening the integrity of those systems. So if people are coming to our lands and seeing these kinds of things, what impression are they going to get of us as a land protection group? And how is that going? That could impact us negatively for that reason, as well as the habitats just aren't what they could be. So we really do feel this pull for where are we spending our resources? And the answer really is both. We just have to keep doing both, and we have to increase doing both if at all possible. So we really need to increase our capacity. when you see all these like lands for sale, it just kind of like makes your heart clench up a little bit because we have been discovered. I think we all knew it would happen someday, but COVID kind of made that happen a little bit faster. And the series of pictures on the left here is kind of how I got into conservation. I became a conservationist when I was, I think, 5 years old, because I used to go to this patch of wild strawberries that was a walk from my house, and it was cleared for apartment buildings. And I was just so mad. I came home so mad that my patch was cleared. And that I didn't realize, you know, at 5 years old, the balance of human needs versus natural needs. But I felt that taking away of a place that I love to visit, and just challenged myself to always protect other places while I could. So now, in addition to development, there are other challenges that we face that we need to protect our lands from, and climate change is certainly one of those. And with our changing climate, some of our habitats are really taking a big hit. I don't know if any of you have swamplands that was dominated by ash, but the emerald ash borer has probably changed those in a very dramatic way. So we need to do things to protect some of these areas as best we now can. And at Pavila, here's one of our Make a Difference Day groups from Michigan Tech helping us plant in some bur oak. So bur oak are native to the Upper Peninsula, but they're in the lower tier of counties, the south of us. This is an assisted migration project that we have going on, where we used to have an ash overstory. Now we're trying to get some other species, maybe a few southern species, to grow in this area, because they might be able to better handle this new warmer climate than our ash that got taken out by the emerald ash borer. Invasive species are also becoming more of a concern, and the climate change issue is also exacerbating this, because we have, where our cold winters would have killed off a lot of things that wouldn't have grown here quite so well before. Now that the climate's warming up, some of these more southern species can do a better job of surviving here. And this is one of the worst invasive species we have. This is buckthorn. It's a berry that birds like to eat. Here's a pile that our KSMA invasive species management area helped us with at Pavila. Here's one that I took a picture of just the other day, one we missed, one that grew back. These fruits are not as nutritious for the birds, and the birds eat them. And this is especially bad because the birds then fly and can poop anywhere. A lot of our invasive species are really bad in parking lots, right? It's kind of like the most concentrated there. And then it kind of thins out as you get away from the parking lots. But since birds can take these fruits anywhere, it makes it very hard to manage them. And so we need to up our efforts on that a lot more. Here's an example of some shoreline naturalization at Marzen. Some of our attempts to improve habitats or to mitigate things don't work out this well. This was a great project, but the increase in the lake levels wiped it out right as it was looking really great. So some of our efforts, at a minimum, we learn something, right? We do our best, and we learn something, and then we take what we learn and we apply it. So we're still trying to do some shoreline naturalizations at Marzen with some newfound ideas on what went wrong and what we can do better in the future. Another reason why stewardship is so important to the land trust is that our members, our members, can really have pride in these shared spaces and feel ownership. Like Pat said, like Eric said, KLT is all of us. And so when people can feel that connection to that land and that ownership, it really just helps us protect what's there. And people can let us know what's going on. We can't be in all of these 26 places at once. And having that help from the community is helpful to us, eyes on the ground. So some of the ways that that members can help us, or the community can help us, is by volunteer work days. This is helping us with very specific projects that we need just a lot of hands and people on the ground. And So here's an example of some a weed pull, some knapweed pulling that was out at Marsden, I believe. There's a very young Curtis there. And here's when Steph Tubman was a board member that just went off our board this fall. Steph and I were working on the same issue at Boston Pond. That knapweed is just something you have to kind of keep tabs on all the time. So a lot of times we spend our time pulling out bad plants, but a lot of times we're trying to improve habitats and we're trying to put in good plants. So this sign was donated to us by one of our members, Carrie Rickert, who does feel that pressure of people coming into the area and wants us to help us protect the Keweenaw and keep it special for its special qualities. And so this sign kind of caused a path of destruction. And here we have some members of Keweenaw Wild Ones helping us put some native plants. They also donated the plants as well as the time to kind of help us naturalize this area. So this wasn't a great area. And so perhaps this was an opportunity to improve that place. We hope it works anyway. This is some projects that have been done at some of our projects. Some of our lands have a lot of projects that we continue through time. So our Marsden Nature Retreat, hopefully you've all been there. I think you have held some events there, a lot of events there. And so since this is open to the public, we'd like to concentrate on these native plant gardens so that people can really see what native plants look like, see how to use them in their landscape. We at the same time take out a lot of the European lawn, which is not great for climate or mowing, and it's not great habitat. So we've got some of our interns who are helping us plant native plants into the shoreline area. Here we've got some members of Keweenaw Wild One helping us maintain some blueberries that we hope people can forage on someday. We've got volunteers helping us in our native plant nursery, which we use to raise plants to plant out both at Marsden and other projects. And there's some more Wild One members. And then this is Michigan Tech Summer Youth Group that was helping us put in our native plant shrub garden in the background there. So some sites require, because we're doing a lot more there, they also require a lot more maintenance. And so we really welcome groups. So if you're wondering what you as an individual can do, you can help us with these things, but you as a group could also maybe come out and help us with some of these days if that seems desirable to you. Boston Pond is another place where we're trying to really make the improvements. Here we've got those Wild One members down here helping us with that sign planting. The Wild Ones are helping us put in some native plants, take out invasives and put native plants in. Another summer youth group trying to help us smother out bad plants, and some we've had school groups come out. This was a particularly cool day because 7th graders came out and helped the 4th graders help us plant plants out here. And then we also were partnering with Project Wingspan to try to get some milkweed established to improve that site. So we're taking out invasive species, we're putting in native plants. Boston Pond is such a cool park. It's like a pocket park for us. I've seen, because I spent hours here planting, I've seen so many people come for like 10, 15 minutes. They park, they eat their lunch, they might make a text safely. They use our outhouse, which is a lot nicer than the highway ones. And they will walk out and look at the pond, and then they'll walk back. It's like a moment in their day where they're choosing to go there and connect with nature. And so it's actually kind of a cool, I'm glad that it is part of the byway program because it really does get used by a whole lot of people, but only for short periods of time, which is pretty neat. Another way that we can use help from people is to have people be site stewards. You might recognize that handsome guy. Jim was really important to us at Pavila. Not only keeping tabs on the land and helping us with our resources there, but reaching out to the public and teaching them about the land, really caring about the land. So we are hoping to really increase our site steward. We're hoping to initialize our site steward program and get people and groups to adopt certain places so that they can really help us increase our caring for that land and our outreach there too, if that's something that they are fond of. This particular map Jim worked on. And you can see that he's got some beaver lodges here and beaver dams and rock piles. And that was just, I just think that's such a cool map. I refer to it all the time. So here's another way that that you can help with outings. If you know, if you have an expertise and you would like to share it, that really helps us. And I'll get to an example of that in a minute. But here's an example where I recruited somebody else to do the stewardship for us, or the outreach for us. I'm sorry. This is Samantha Smith. She is a professor, faculty at Michigan Tech University in cognitive sciences. She led this psych hike for us. We were at Lily Creek, and she was talking about research that shows, we all know that being outside and connecting with nature is good for us, but she was describing the science behind this, proving that it really is good for us. All these different methods that they've used to test our cognitive abilities before and after being out in nature. And we did this cool hike where we went around the 0.8 mile trail at Lily Creek, totally silent the first time. And then the second time we were able to talk to each other. And she really had us focus on what we noticed for both of those trips around the Lily Creek Trail. And it was really great to hear everybody's talking about what they noticed when we were all silent, and then what was different when we were able to commune with each other. Both were important and both are very different. And so that was a really fun outing. Here's Steph Tubman again. She was our former board member. She was, we always try to do an opt outside after the Thanksgiving, you know, trying to get people to focus on each other rather than shopping. And she has done this scavenger hunt for us a couple of years in a row. And sometimes all families really need is a little carrot to get outside. And we love providing those carrots with our story trails and things like this to just be that extra little incentive. And through the marvels of social media and boosting your posts, I think we've been able to reach out to people that don't already know about us to learn about our lands, because we really, that's why we're here, is to have people connect with their lands and get out there. Here's Joan Chatty leading an outing about frogs at Pavla Wetland, and there was a lot of excitement there. It was kind of cold and not a lot of frogs, but boy, was there excitement about the frogs that we found. So these kind of outreach, that's something that you might be able to do too as a group, if that would be fun for you to come up with an outing to do together. And there, it's really meaningful to get people outside that have trouble getting outside otherwise. And here, Maria Genowiak, she was a past board member with us. Here we are having a picnic with little brothers out at Pavla. It was such a great day. This woman said that it had been 10 years since she had been outside, and she was outside every day as a child. And that was just really very meaningful to help these people get out and enjoy those places. And here's Sarah Cool leading a tyke hike. Our outreach this last year was kind of focused on the tyke hikes because we were busy with that accreditation renewal. And luckily we had a great volunteer in Sarah who wanted to get her daughter out and thought she could also do that for other members of the community. So that was, we'd like to increase the groups that we can get outside. You know, maybe somebody wants to lead an outing for seniors, right? Or singles. I don't know. There's a lot of groups out there that could use hikes probably, right? Targeted to them. So the last thing that that you can do to support us, if you can't do stewardship and you don't feel like you could do an outing, you could always donate because we need funds to help us with what we do. And any donation is really helpful. We love the letters that come with little notes that encourage us and tell us that they appreciate what we do and keep doing it. And some people have only given us $20 at a time, but they have like for the last 15, 20 years. So that's thousands of dollars by now. And that's pretty cool. The other thing that you could do is to maybe let a friend know about us and have them become members, because that we need to increase our membership. Every time Pat is successful with a lands project, I think, okay, there's more to add to our to-do list, right? More to take care of, which is a good problem to have. But we just need to expand our capacity to be able to take care of the lands we already have. I wanted to point out, this is a picture of our website. So the visit button here, if you click on that, the map pulls up of our sites, and there's an interactive menu at the bottom. If you wanted to know, let's say you wanted to know which of our places had a bench or an outhouse, or which places were good for birding, you could fill in that interactive map, and the map will populate with our lands that are check marked for the things that you put in that pull down menu. So that's a great way to plan a visit. This Get Involved has, if you pull down that menu, it has our activities, our upcoming events. So that's a good way to find out about us if you're not on our Facebook or Instagram or email list already. And then I wanted to thank you for having us here today. We recognize, as Pat said, that the UU membership and the KL membership has this large area, this large slice of overlap. And I think that's because of this saying, one of our mottos here at the bottom of the page, it's Pat's, and I think it applies to both of these groups. And that's that we're good people doing good things. Let's hope it all works out. And that's the end. And I think we can welcome any questions that you all have, if there are such things.
Yeah, thank you.